Okay, why don't we get started so that we have plenty of time? Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Um, this is a session on, this is one of several public health writing workshops. Last week actually was a library resources session, and that is recorded, and we'll show you how you can access that if you weren't able to join us. But today we're going to talk about paraphrasing and citing sources and doing that particularly in public health documents. And I am doing this with Kristen Sheridan, who is an education and information services librarian and the public health liaison at the Alumni Medical Library. So the way that we're going to do this is we're going to talk for a few minutes and introduce some resources. I'll talk a bit about quoting, paraphrasing, citing sources, just sort of introductory. And then Kristen's going to spend the bulk of the time going over how to use Zotero, which is almost magical sort of resource program, one of several that helps you to cite, keep track of your sources, add your sources as you're writing, and then format them as is required, whatever format you're told that you need to use. So why don't we go ahead and get started? So, all right, I think what I need to do is share that. Okay, so describe the sources. These are the learning objectives. Describe resources to better help you incorporate and cite sources. Understand when and how to incorporate information and analysis from sources. Explain best practices for quoting and paraphrasing when writing for public health audiences. Describe best practices for citing sources you've paraphrased, introduce citation management tools, and then introduce quickly Turnitin Draft Coach for checking originality, citations, and grammar. The Public Health Writing Resource Center. Kristen, do you mind saying a word or two about this?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Public Health Writing Resource Center was kind of a dual brain for me and Jen to find these resources that were out in a bunch of different places for students. There was the public health blog, there was resources from the library website, there was SPH resources, and they were all in different spots. So the goal for this guide was to kind of find all of those resources and put them together in one spot. So you had the blog, the books, all of the resources that you need to be a successful writer in public health, and put them in the same resource guide. So it's probably kind of small for you, but over on the kind of left-hand side, there's a page navigation. So we start off with kind of the introduction to public health writing and the resource guide, the types of materials and resources on there. There's also a tab on the blog specifically. So the public health blog is a really wonderful resource that talks about tips and tricks in writing for a public health audience, and how that's very different than maybe your traditional English 100 kind of writing. And I don't want to say the problem with the blog. The blog was written in a chronological order, so it was really hard to scroll through and find articles that you were interested in looking at. So this was one way that we could kind of pull some of those out of the blog and link directly to them, just so it was easier for you to access. And there's also some citing information. So we'll go into the citation management software, Zotero, in just a little bit, but there are a few other resources that you can use that are really helpful, help you organize your citations, and then cite while you're writing your manuscript or your assignment project, whatever it is that you're working on. A couple other resources online that look at citation style, some of the differences between APA style and AMA style. There's no universal citation style here at BU, so it's really, whatever your faculty member wants you to use as the citation style, you can always double check with them. Depending on the assignment, sometimes it's indicated in your syllabus what citation style is required. But again, any questions you have about that, we're more than happy to help at the library. And then just a couple other local resources here in Boston, as well as on campus. There are peer coaches available for you as well through SPH. And that's a really great resource because a lot of those peer coaches have done some of the assignments that you're working on and can just give another set of eyes to your project. So I hope that kind of is a good snapshot of the Public Health Writing Resource Center, but we encourage you to go and take a look at it and check out some of the blog posts and resources that are on there.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And it really is, it's a great resource for me because I created a lot of these resources, but as Kristen said, they're kind of all over the place. And then the blog was just not a particularly high profile thing, but there's really, I think, useful stuff that I've written and other people have written. We've had students, peer coaches who have written about their own writing experiences, for instance, in their individual community and population health class. So you can find the links here to check that out if you're interested, but I am going to move on to talk about some very specific articles that are on the blog, things that I've written that I really strongly suggest that you take a look at, because I wrote them because I was responding to things that I was seeing in my students' writing, particularly for new students, and also based on my own experience. So I was an MPH student here a long, long time ago. Before that, I did my PhD in English literature. So I had a lot of experience with writing, but it was a very different type of writing. And one of the things that we did a lot was we quoted a lot. Like my papers would be big chunks of quotes sort of strung together with my own words. But I was writing about novels and poetry. And what was really important was how the authors were using that, what they were saying, and then what I was saying about it. So when I came here as a student, I had to kind of learn a completely new writing style. And I'm going to talk about that next week in our Writing for Public Health workshop in more detail. But the reason that I'm saying it right now is just to sort of introduce you to these few pieces that I think can be really useful to you. One being, it's all about audience and purpose. So you are writing for a specific audience and a specific purpose when you're writing for public health almost all the time. And one of the things that we rarely do in public health writing is quote. So it's something that if you are in the habit of, then one of your challenges, one of your goals will be to develop your paraphrasing skills and to really paraphrase almost everything from your sources. So paraphrasing meaning putting it into your own words. And when there are a few instances when you quote, one of them being that the words that the person, the author, the source, whatever it is, are using are just, there's no other way to say this. And that I'm not talking about, three-word bits like prevalence in South Africa is, I guess that's more than 3 words, but when you're talking kind of about bigger concepts, and somebody just said something like really beautifully and perfectly. So that's very rare. You might want to have a little quote somewhere along the way, but the only time I find myself quoting is when I'm sort of referring to specific kinds of maybe communications where the words are what it is that I'm writing about, or about laws or statutes where the words really matter. So, words always matter, but the whole idea behind paraphrasing is that you're absorbing your sources and you're really understanding them for yourself, and then you're kind of putting them to use for the uses that you need them for. And so when you're paraphrasing often, then you still need to cite. And I think that's a balance that some people get a little bit confused about. So when I have these 2 parts of this 2-part article called Quote Rarely, Paraphrase Often, Cite Generously. And the idea with paraphrasing is that, like I said, you're translating the words of others and you're crediting sources. And really, the question you can always ask yourself is, if somebody is reading this right now and they want to know where I got this information because they're interested, then are they going to have to search for it? Or am I kind of giving them the information along the way? So these are articles that can help you to do that. And so successfully paraphrasing your sources. When writing, it's important to incorporate information into your own words. If you're not sure what this means, you can use a program to check your writing. We're going to talk about that after Kristen goes over Zotero. Um, and I'm going to just go back to this. So the whole idea of citing generously, one of the things that I often suggest to people is that if if you have a paragraph and the entire paragraph is basically taken from another source and it's one source, then what I like to do is I will cite the first sentence and the last sentence so that the reader isn't wondering at any point where that source's information stops and starts. So that's one way to do it. And that's the kind of stuff you'll find, the very specific tips in these articles. So please take a look at them. I think that you'll find them helpful. And paraphrasing, I think, can sometimes citing and paraphrasing can be a little scary, and people worry, of course, with good reason about plagiarizing somebody else's work. But the way that I approach it is to worry less about plagiarizing and more, and don't worry about it, but put a strong emphasis on giving credit where credit is due and making your writing as useful to your readers as possible so they know where you're getting your information so they can easily follow kind of what you're doing. And they can also, if they're interested in what you're saying and they're interested in your sources, go find them on their own. So I think that I am going to stop sharing and turn it over to you, Kristen.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. All right. So I know Jen and I have both mentioned the software Zotero. You're probably thinking, what is that? Maybe some of you have heard about it before, which is great. But would I be able to share my screen?
Oh, absolutely. Sorry about that.
Thanks. So I'm just going to walk you through a couple of ways that you can access downloading Zotero through the library website. And then we're going to do a little bit of a demo so you can see how it kind of works in practice.
Okay, sorry about that.
No, that's fine. All right, so I got it pulled up right there. I had to make sure I had all my right windows open. So the library homepage is a really wonderful place to get started with your research. I talk about that a little bit more in last week's session that we did. I'll also show you really quick where you can find that recording because that's also up on our public health portal. So that'll be a good way to see that resource, the citation guide, and then we'll go into Zotero from there. So along the top bar here, we have kind of our navigation of the page. And if we want to go and look at the subject guides we have at the library, we're going to go over to subjects and then A to Z resource guides. So I touched on these last week, but I'll just kind of reiterate this week. These resource guides have been curated by the medical librarians here and are a really great jumping off point if you're starting research in a new area. And this is also where you can find that public health writing resource center that we were just looking at that screenshot of. So they're listed here in alphabetical order. So if we scroll on down, we have some that are, more specific on a discipline or a research area, like epi and biostats. We've got some with our GMS program, forensic anthropology. So we have some specific ones, and then we also have citation information. So general guides that are applicable and helpful to students, faculty, and staff on campus. So before I go into the citation guide, though, I just really want to quickly point out the Public Health Writing Resource Center. So this guide we just took a look at in that screenshot that Jen shared. All these pages are still here. Yeah, so great resource to take a look at. I encourage you to spend some time browsing through the pages, seeing the materials and resources available to you. I'm going to go back to that list of LibGuides just so I can point out in the public health portal right here. If we go down to videos and tutorials, it's right here. So this is the recording that we did last week. They also have this recording that was from a couple of years ago. It's pretty much the same content, but I wanted to just have both available because the research question we do in PubMed is a little bit different. And then actually the session we're doing right now, this is from a couple of years ago. So I can always replace these and because they'll be updated. And, sometimes the interface changes a little bit, the website changes a little bit. So anyways, that is available to you as well. All right, so I'm going to pop back into our list of LibGuides here, or resource guides, research guides. We call them a whole bunch of things. They really all mean the same. But I want to pop down here to the citation information. So this guide has information on citing books, citing articles, how do I cite my source when it may be a different material? So there are a couple of resources here for you to take a look at. We also have the two most popular citation styles here, AMA. So here's some information on AMA style citations as well as APA style citations. So, you can really use whichever you prefer or whichever was assigned to you by your faculty member or the assignment that you're working on. Luckily, using programs like Zotero, it is pretty easy to switch between different citation styles. And I'll show that when we go into the demo. But if we go down here to the tab that says citation management, this is where you're going to find more information on Zotero specifically. So they do have a really nice introduction on how to download, but you can go to their website right here, Zotero. You can go ahead and click that download button. It will download in, whatever browser you have, whatever device you have. And since I already have Zotero downloaded, I'm going to kind of walk you through how you can use a couple of the features within it. At the library, we're also always happy to help you get this software downloaded onto your computer. So if you're, running into any roadblocks at home or, when you're on campus and you're having difficulty getting them to speak to your Microsoft Word or whatever it may be, pop on up to the 12th floor. We're more than happy to sit down and kind of troubleshoot and see what's going on. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to kind of have a mock assignment or research question. So what I've done is I have pulled up a Word document here. Today I'm going to look at, maybe some screening and resource connections with social determinants of health. So last week we walked through, how to do that search in PubMed, how to use mesh terms and keywords and all of that good stuff to refine your search and really use PubMed to its highest potential. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to paste this search in PubMed. So I'm going to go back to the library homepage. I'm going to go on over to PubMed, and I'm going to paste that search right here in my search box. So here I do have a lot of results that come in. We could filter these out depending on the research question. Maybe you want to look at a specific demographic or age group, or maybe you want to look in a rural setting or an urban setting. These are kind of things that you can figure out once, you run that initial search and maybe look through the literature and see, oh, there's really not that much information on rural settings for elderly individuals. Maybe that's how you want to hone that search. But for now, for the purpose of today's demonstration, I'm just going to go ahead with this kind of first page that we have. So this article looks interesting. Maybe you're just starting this assignment. You may wonder, what are social determinants of health? How do you screen? This could be a really interesting paper for you, and it would be a good jumping off point. So maybe this is a paper you're thinking, I want to come back to this and take a look at this later, but I would like to save this citation. So this is where Zotero can come in to kind of help you do so. So on that page that we were looking at before, where you can download Zotero, you can download it to your desktop as an application. You can also log in the web, which is really nice. If you're home for Thanksgiving break and you didn't bring your computer and you just have to access your Zotero library, it is possible. You can do so on the web. So that's great. But what I want to point out is the web extension. So up here in my kind of toolbar on my browser, I'm using Firefox right now. So right now I have a little piece of paper, and if you can see when I hover my mouse, it says Save to Zotero, and then parentheses PubMed. So this is what a button that I can click. I can do this. I can choose I'm going to do Public Health 720. And it will try to save any PDF available for you. It doesn't look as though it's allowing me to save this PDF. So we'll try again on another article. But it will pull in all of the information you need to make this citation. It'll have the title, the author information, journal, year, all of those identifying things that you'll need to create a complete citation. But what's really nice is you can go ahead and click that little button and it will save things one at a time for you. So I'm going to go back to that set of results and, maybe scroll down a little bit. You know, maybe I'm really interested in this. Again, it's pretty broad. It's not looking at a specific population or disease. It's just looking at, maybe just screening in general. So I'm going to go ahead and click that Save to Zotero button once more. It has saved the folder that I want to save this to, and I'll show you in just a moment where you can create collections and folders and things. I just wanted to show you how the browser extension worked. This does work in any browser that you have. It just depends on where your extensions are located. So I believe in Chrome, your extensions are also on this side of the URL, so in the top right. In Safari, it's actually over on I believe it's on the left-hand side, right around this area. So you'll just, depending on the browser you use, it could just end up in a different spot. So, let's say this is feeling pretty good. I found a couple of resources that I would like to cite. Now I'm going to go ahead and open up my Zotero library. So here's my Zotero library. I'm going to go to that folder that I made. And what's really nice about this is where you can kind of organize your collections, your folders in whatever way works best for you. We get a lot of questions on, well, how do I organize this? It's really whatever works best for you. So if you want to, for instance, do a folder just for Public Health 720, and then I know you have your DNS assignment, maybe you want to do a folder for part 1, a folder for part 2, a folder for part 3. Or you want to do in a folder for all the introductions and all of the discussions, however it makes most sense in your brain, go for it. It's really nice because you can really customize how you organize your citations here. So I want to show you the ones that we just had pulled in. So this one right here, we can see along the right-hand side, all of the information that was pulled in. One thing we may want to do is double check this. I mean, it typically will pull in all of the relevant information, but not every technology is perfect. So it's better to look and find any problems here in Zotero rather than waiting until you get to that Microsoft Word document, because then when you try to play around with the citation in Microsoft Word, it can cause some kind of problems between the connection of the two resources. If you can see here, I do have a few PDFs, so this really tiny paper clip. This will show us any attachment that has been able to come in through the BU Libraries catalog. So that's why starting at that PubMed link on the library homepage is so important, as well as creating your Zotero library account with your BU email. The BU will do its best to pull in any available PDFs for you. So it's really helpful because it's also a resource that you can use to read the full text. We can go ahead and double click this. And again, we've got all of this lovely information about the resource, but also we can mark up this text. So you can see I've already kind of done this as a demonstration, but you can highlight things, which is really nice. You can pick a color if you like to color code things. I love to color code things, so this is very exciting, a feature here. You can also leave sticky notes for yourself and make comments and things like that. So it's a really great way to mark up the text and pull out some of the, quotes or things that you want to use and paraphrase in your own words in your own paper. So a couple things you can do there, which is really nice. And yeah, so again, you can really organize this however you like. You can also create group libraries. So if you're working with a classmate or a group, if you go up here to where it says collections, you can select this new group. So this is actually going to bring me to the web version. You do need to create a folder, a group folder in the web version. The application version, you can create a new folder. You can create things for yourself in your own personal library. But to create a new group, you will need to do that in the web, and it's really easy to do so. Couple options. So maybe you want to, maybe you're very passionate about social determinants of health and screening, and you want to make a big library that anyone can access. You can do that, and you can make it public with an open membership. So anyone online that has a Zotero account can stumble across your library and see kind of the resources you have there. You can also have a public one, but a closed membership. So that just means you need to apply or be invited to join that library. And then you can do a private membership. So this might be a better option if you're working with, a small group or a partner, and you want to just have the two of you or the group have access to that library. So, you can make a name for this group. So we can do, Public Health 720. Maybe I want to just have it be private. Maybe Jen and I are working on something and I don't want anyone to, add things that we're not looking to have added to our library. You can go ahead and click Create Group. And then here's where you can kind of update some of those settings. Again, the group type is going to be private. So anyone in the group can see the library. Anyone in the group can edit the collection and the folder. And then same thing, anyone can edit any files. You go ahead and click Save Settings. That worked. There we go. Yeah. So now what's great is now I can open up that desktop and hopefully, let me even give this a quick quit. Sometimes I've noticed to get Zotero, at least if you have a Mac, sometimes quitting Zotero and opening it back up, it really just does wonders. And of course, now my group library is not showing. Oh, there it is. So there it is. And you can add things to this library as well. So it's a really great resource, especially when you do want to share articles and things with others, or just to organize for yourself. So now what I want to do is I want to take a few moments to show you how to embed or kind of use Microsoft Word and Zotero together. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my Word document here. And what Zotero does is, after you've kind of gone through the databases, you've saved those articles to your PubMed library or your Zotero library, you can do what they call cite while you write. So let's say, I'm working on my introduction and I'm looking at, my very scholarly research assignment here, social determinants of health, and I want to cite this. Maybe I'm paraphrasing someone else's idea and I want to give them credit where it's due. So what I want to do is in the top of my Word, I'm going to go up and kind of expand on some of this toolbar here. I'm going to go to Zotero. So what I want to do now is I'm going to click this button that says Add or Edit Citation. What it's going to ask me is the citation style that I want to start with. So let's say I want to start with APA, right? I'm going to go ahead and do that. And now it's going to pull up this search bar for me. So now I can start searching for the articles that I want to cite. So maybe I want to do this first, screening for social determinants of health. And as I start typing, all of the articles that I have in my library will show up underneath here. So maybe I want to get started with this particular paper. Great. We'll press enter. We can see it has added that in-text citation for me. Maybe I want to add some more things here and we'll do, I'm just kind of typing nonsense. But that's okay. You won't be typing nonsense. This will make a lot more sense when you're actually writing your paper. I'm going to go ahead and do that add edit citation again. And that search bar will come up. So we can do the screening again. What I really like about Zotero is it will let you know an article that you've already cited in your paper. Sometimes you may cite a resource more than once in different parts of your paper. So this is just helpful to see, okay, I've already cited this in the paper. I can click this again if it's relevant. So we'll try this one. We also get questions a lot of, well, what if I'm paraphrasing two papers that have similar ideas? You can cite two things at once. You just keep typing in this bar. So maybe, I want to add some more screening on the social determinants of health. We'll try this one as well. Go ahead and click enter. So now we can see this in-text citation does include both of those authors in alphabetical order. I also have gotten a lot of questions on, well, what if I need to update? What if there's a third author that has talked about mass screening and I need to give them credit too, because I'm talking about a few different ideas. So you can do that. All you need to do is actually highlight the thing that you want to update and go ahead and click this Add Edit Citation button again. And it just kind of brings us that page that we had already seen. So you can either take something away or add something to it. So that question we do get frequently. So I always like to show that because it's not always clear how to add something. And there's a particular way to do so. Like maybe you want to add this author that we have already cited in there. Go right ahead. Because you can't really you can take that out, but it does kind of mess with the connection between Zotero and Microsoft Word. So I wouldn't recommend doing that. I would recommend instead highlighting, clicking the Add Edit Citation, and from here, maybe removing that or removing this one, however it may be, and then updating it that way. But let me add that one back in just so that you can see the bibliography when it's all kind of done there. We'll do that one. Doesn't really matter, I guess. And so what I really love about this is that, we often get questions of, oh no, I cited an APA and I'm writing a policy brief and I need it to be an AMA. AMA citation style is a superscript, so it's a small number and it really takes out all of that extra text. Like for instance, this that has 2 to 3 authors or papers is a pretty decent in-text citation. So if you'd prefer to have, more of your own text on the page and less of just the in-text citation, you can absolutely do that. So you can go ahead and click this document preferences right up at the top. This is going to bring us that same question we were asked when we first logged in. It's going to give us the option to select any of the citation styles available. Maybe I want to go ahead and do the AMA. Usually it takes a few moments and it will switch over and you can see these little superscript numbers here. So let's say, I'm finished writing my paper. My paper has concluded. There we go. And I want to just add one more resource here. We'll do screening one last time. We'll do that one. Sure, why not? So we've got 4, our last resource. Now I want to add my bibliography to the paper. So what I can do, and this is kind of where the magic happens. And this is where most students say, Kristen, are you a magician or a wizard? How did you make this bibliography populate so fast? So if you click that Add Edit Bibliography, it takes just a moment and it will give you your bibliography in the citation style that you have used. Which is really great. Again, if you decide, I really want APA, you can go back to that document preferences, go ahead and select APA and okay. Just might take an extra moment now that the bibliography is on there, and there you go. Now it's in alphabetical order by author. It has the hanging indent and the double space in between the citation, like the lines of the citation. So there's a lot more functionality here. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have, but that's kind of a very quick Zotero demo.
Thank you so much, Kristen.
Sure.
This never fails to amaze me that I used to try and do this. We all had to do this manually at one point.
Mhm.
And that it makes it so easy. The one thing that I would say, that just to add on to what Kristen was talking about, especially once you get to the point where you're looking at your works cited, you've added it in and you're looking at the list, is that sometimes Zotero, when it's pulling in the information off of the web or off of PubMed, it doesn't always get all the details right. So it's really, really important to proofread,
Mhm.
and then not make your edits, as Kristen was saying before, directly in your paper, but to go back sort of to the source and make the changes in that right-hand section. And the more you do this, I guess the more kind of second nature it will become. But I, I really, really strongly recommend doing this. And believe it or not, I have students in my class every semester who still do it manually. And then I always try and, convince them to do this. And then a helpful other student peer will show them how to do it. And they'll just be like, oh my gosh, it changes everything. So
Mhm.
um, thank you so much. So
Sure.
oh, go ahead. Were you going to say
No,
something?
I see that there's a hand raised.
Oh, yeah. Question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Kristen, thank you. So this is my third semester, and I've used Zotero the first 2 semesters, and it's been so magical. I mean, it was life-changing. And I know I reached out to you a couple of times for some questions, but I want to know, just for clarity, when you save an article, it's sometimes gives you option like save with image, embedded image. Can you go through what those differences are and what is the preferred version to save? Do you not understand what I'm?
Sure. What type of resource were you saving that you got that? So I don't know if
Sometimes
I've seen that myself.
it'll be a web page, and it'll say when I click and save to Zotero, it'll say save with image or with embedded image. I don't have the exact wording, and I often wondered. I don't know enough to make a informed decision. I just pick one, and the information happens to be there. I just wanted to understand what those differences are in the options.
Sure. So I actually haven't come across that myself.
Oh, okay.
I would guess that maybe it could be if you also wanted to cite an image, it may embed a further citation of the image itself. If it's an image that's not owned by, say, the CDC or the website that you're downloading the citation from. Um, yeah, that's a good question. I haven't seen that
I
myself.
okay, so when I come across it, I'll take a screenshot and I'll reach out to you with it because I really want to understand what is the difference
Okay. Yeah, I mean, maybe
between.
it's pulling in some of this info here. But again, I'm I'm not sure. I haven't seen that
Okay.
myself.
So I guess I would just add to that, Nasima, is that
Yeah.
who's talking?
Yep.
Hi.
Perfect.
Is that, you can think about what information you need, what information do you think you'll need when you are citing that source? So if it's asking you if you want images, information about photos, unless you're citing a photo, you probably don't need that information. So you can go with maybe just the simplest option, because that will just keep your, what's going on in the right hand side cleaner. I can't say for sure because I don't know what you're seeing, but
Okay.
that would probably be my decision making process.
Yeah, I
Okay.
would agree with that. Citing images can sometimes be quirky because it depends on, who took the image, who owns the image, there's a couple other factors to consider, but a lot of times images will have the option to cite, and that might be a separate citation.
Okay.
So, but
And
yes, please keep me posted on if you see this again, because
yeah, I will, because I'm
it.
sure I'll come across it again. And did I just understand you to, when you were saving the file up as PDF, is when you have options, is it best to use PDF, choose PDF?
So
Or,
yeah, so if we go back to this particular set of results here, maybe I'll click this first one and see. Yeah, so this one is available through BU and also through PMC. So if we go ahead and click that, it'll save this, and it will save an open access PDF or a PDF through BU. I think I must have a connection issue today because it will typically save.
Okay.
But it usually, kind of makes that decision for you if it's applicable, if it's available.
Yeah, and I would say I always get the PDF if I can. Because it's, I may have it saved somewhere else on my hard drive, but it's always nice to have it right there when I'm sort of in the act of trying to decide which sources to use, that I can then just open it up, take a quick look at it right there within within the program. And so it's just a nice way to, once again, just have extra information so you get the whole article there.
So if we use PDF, all the citation information should populate, right? That belongs to that document.
So that depends. I've had a couple of instances where, like, if you download a PDF in the browser and try to cite it there, it may not pull all of the relevant information. So I'd say when you can, instead of going, PMC is a little bit different, but instead of going to maybe like the Massachusetts Department of Public Health that maybe has, yeah, I don't know. It's really like on a case by case basis, but I have seen in the past, if you've just used this connector on a PDF, it doesn't always pull in the right author or the right, other kind of resources here. That's happened a few times. But again, it's really just kind of, I don't
Yeah.
if that makes sense. I've come across that a few times with students. So I'd say when you can, try to go directly to the source to get the citation, because you have a better chance of getting all of the information you need for the citation.
Okay, so that's what my question was. So I usually save PDF to my personal, just because it's subject matter information that I like to get my hands on when I want to read something. But for citation purposes on Zotero, maybe it's a good idea or best practice to save it as the source document that is available.
Yeah, I would try to do that just to make sure you're getting all of the right information in the fields.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So Kristen, can I share my screen again? So I just have a couple more slides, and I just want to point out another really useful resource, and then we'll have some time for questions. So if you're at the point where you have a draft of your paper, you have, using Zotero, put in your in-text citations, you've completed your works, you've added your works cited page, but you're still not sure. And it's okay to not be sure if you're paraphrasing correctly. I think many students during their undergrad, when they get to graduate school, and they, for the last 4 years, either because they were in a major where they didn't write a lot of papers, or because they've been out of school for a really long time, they just feel rusty and they're not sure what does it mean to actually adequately put something into my own words, to change it enough and to integrate it enough. And so there are some really great resources you can use to check. They call it the originality of your language. So One of them is Turnitin Draft Coach. Another is Grammarly. I believe Microsoft Word also has a plugin that you can use for this. Grammarly costs $12 a month. It's super useful in all sorts of ways, but I'm going to just tell you a little bit about Turnitin Draft Coach, which you can get because you are a BU student. And if you just Google Turnitin Draft Coach Boston University, it will take you to the page and sort of give you the necessary information. But what I want to do is show you an example, and you're not going to really be able to see the words in the student's paper, but this student gave me, this is a real student paper, and she gave me permission to use it as an example because it was a real learning opportunity for her. So she wrote this paper. She wasn't sure how to paraphrase information from her sources. So she ended up actually having a lot of verbatim text. So text that was directly out of her sources. And you can see here, it's sort of color coded, and she put this into Turnitin Draft Coach, and it showed that 50% of her words were directly taken from other sources. And what it does is it then color codes and shows you where that information is from. So you can see just on this first page that she's taken a lot from this NCBI, NIH, you know, this article. And so just being able to see that, she was then able to, once we talked about it and talked about, okay, this is too much. This is somebody else's words, and I want it to sound like I wrote it. I want to integrate it into my knowledge. And so she revised it, and this is what it looked like afterwards. So it can be a process. If you are a person who, if you're a student here on campus who is here in person, you can ask a peer coach, you can ask a TA, you can ask your professor. There are lots of people who can help you with this, but this is a really great tool for checking your work. And even if you feel like you know how to paraphrase, it's also really useful because it can be really helpful. So the kind of ideal range for any paper is to have this sort of match of, you know, language that exists from other places is between 10 and 15%. It's really hard to get less than that because you're talking about organizations, you're using their names, you're talking about authors, you're, you know, you are using certain chunks of small bits of text. So what you want to do is if you put it into Turnitin Draft Coach and you see that you've got 15%, still scroll through it and think, okay, are there better ways for me to reword this? And if you've got 50%, then you can zero in on those places, for instance, that are red or that have the most color coding, and will help you then say, okay, now I need to really think about this and put it into my own words. And then you can try it again. You can put it back in and see what happens. So it's a super useful tool that you can use. So a couple other tools. There is a great tutorial about identifying and avoiding plagiarism in academic writing that was created by David Flynn from our alumni medical library. Professor Jennifer Schlesinger, if you're in her ICPH class or PH 720 class, she created a really great art or video about analytical writing in public health. It's not specifically about what we're talking about here, but it is a great overview. And then the information here is also about the session that we had last week is also on here. So I am going to share these slides with your ICPH professors should have these slides, and I will send this video along with the updated link to them for this. So you'll be able to access this recording there. You'll also be able to access it on the Public Health Writing Resource Center that we talked about earlier on. So does we only have a few minutes, but does anybody have additional questions? And I am going to stop sharing so I can see everyone. Oops. All right. Nasima, do you have another question, or is your hand still just up?
Okay, sorry, I was muted. So I have a question, and I'm not sure if this is directly related to this session, but the use of Chat GPT
Mhm.
and systems like Turnitin to Coach and looking for the percent that's automated. I think it can do that. Can you talk to us about the use of ChatGPT and whether we should use it or not? I had a project last semester where a teammate was using AI to paraphrase, and it didn't make sense. The end result wasn't that coherent and clear, and I was like, no, please, let's not use that. That's not it didn't capture the essence of
Yeah.
what we were trying to. So can you please talk about that, whether it's encouraged or we should never do it, or yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much for that question. And I would say, Chat GPT and these AI tools can be very useful. But the thing is that you can't depend on them completely. You have to, if you're struggling to paraphrase something, say you were able to, using another AI tool, or using Turnitin Draft Coach or Grammarly, you noticed that you have a chunk of text from a source and you're just really not quite sure how to put it into your own words. You can try putting it into AI and see what you get back. But the thing is that it may not get at that nuance. And so that's when I think it's mostly just useful. The way that I would do it is I would sort of read the source and then, sort of think about it, put it away, move it over to the other side of my desk, and then sit there and try and say, okay, what from this chunk is really important to me? And how do I just say this simply for myself? So ChatGPT can be useful, but you don't want to rely on it. And I think, I don't know if Kristen or Katie, if you have thoughts about that. Every professor sort of has different policies, so you want to talk to them and ask them questions about it too. The important thing is that you're always very upfront about what you're using it for. But I would say use it as a tool and then bring your own analysis to it and decide whether or not it's being useful. Don't just rely on it and kind of use it as a crutch. But Katie, Kristen, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, we get this question a lot at the library, and it is hard for us to answer it completely, because BU does not have an official AI or ChatGPT policy as a university. So we don't have anything to refer back to say yes or yes, you can use this, or no, you can't use this. So I would kind of go off of what Jen was saying and check in with your faculty member, see if it is an option in your class, see if, maybe I know certain professors in certain classes create their own AI policy, maybe at the beginning of the semester. So, if that's incorporated into your class or maybe in your syllabus, double check that. Yeah, I mean, definitely like using it as a tool and not depending on it, I think is an important distinction. Some questions that we've gotten in the past from international students are, English isn't my first language. Can I use ChatGPT to help me with grammar and translations that I don't have a natural translation from my, native language. So that's kind of more of the questions that we get on how to use it. So I would say, and even like you had mentioned, your the ChatGPT didn't really understand the full complexity of the question. So that's where you kind of had to come in with your subject expertise and think about, critically, how can I maybe rework this? I don't know. It's a very difficult question because also AI and ChatGPT, they're changing and evolving every day. So we could say something today and next week it could be completely irrelevant. So that's kind of what I would contribute to that question.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
and I'll just add one more thing to that too, which is I think that there's an important distinction if you're using something like ChatGPT to for something like grammar or checking grammar, something like that. It's very different from asking ChatGPT to paraphrase something for you and then using that text that it gives you, because everything that ChatGPT pulls and spits out is from the internet, and it's from an author. So some author has written that. So if you then use that, it really is plagiarism on some level because somebody wrote that. And so using it to check grammar, totally one thing. And using it, to paraphrase for you is another in my opinion.
Yeah, so the context that we were using was we were in a group project and there were multiple versions that people wrote. Everyone wrote their contribution to the document. And then one of our teammates said, well, we can use AI to kind of how to consolidate and take the common themes. And in that process, that document produced by AI didn't, in my opinion, was not satisfactory in capturing the essence and the nuances of information. So I just didn't have a good defense for not using it or using it. I just didn't want to have anything to do with the artificial stuff because I felt like our human version was better than.
Yeah, so I think that's your defense. And, I think the other defense, the thing that I say most often, and maybe it sounds unsatisfactory, but, writing and incorporating sources is difficult and nuanced and subtle, and it can be very individual. So you really are conveying what you're thinking. And you're not going to develop your thinking skills, your communication skills, if you're relying on a machine to write your paper for you. So, if you're having a hard time like getting a draft started, sometimes it can be useful to, I don't know, use it to get some ideas or to get an outline, and then you kind of play around with that and then you make it your own. Personally, I never use it. But I'm old and old guard, but it's because I feel like as smart as AI is, it's never going to be able to use the voice and kind of bring in what I want to bring in. And then I learn from everything that I write. And I learn because I make mistakes or because I don't get something right, or I'm having a hard time figuring out how to say it. How to communicate it in simple language. So, I think you can lose a number of learning opportunities when you use it. So that's my 2 cents. But does anybody else have any quick questions before we go? We're already over time, but we can stay and answer one more question maybe if you have it. So watch for this recording and for the slides. I will be sending them to your ICPH professors. And I believe that it's next Wednesday at this exact same time. We're going to talk about just kind of the introduction to public health writing and what makes it different from other types of writing that you maybe have done. And we can also continue the AI conversation there. So thanks, everybody. Thank you, Kristen and Katie.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.